What would you do if you woke up in the middle of the night to find your loved one standing over you, holding a knife and speaking in a voice that wasn't theirs? Would you run? Would you fight? Or would you freeze in terror, knowing something far darker than you could imagine had taken control? The wind howled through the skeletal trees surrounding Blackwood Manor, their gnarled branches clawing at the night sky like desperate hands. The mansion loomed in the distance, its broken windows staring out like hollow eyes. Mark and Lisa had always been drawn to the macabre, the unexplained, the thrill of stepping into the unknown. That's why they bought the house. That's why they ignored the warnings. The locals had called it cursed. They spoke in hushed tones about the Blackwood family, who had lived there a century ago. The family had vanished overnight, leaving behind only a trail of blood and a journal filled with cryptic warnings. No one dared to enter the house after that. No one until now. Mark and Lisa arrived on a cold, overcast afternoon. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the house seemed to groan as they stepped inside. Dust coated every surface, and the floorboards creaked under their weight. Lisa shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around her. "This place gives me the creeps," she said, her voice echoing in the vast, empty foyer. Mark grinned, his flashlight casting long shadows on the walls. "That's the point, isn't it? We're here to uncover its secrets." They spent the first day exploring the house. It was a labyrinth of dark corridors, peeling wallpaper, and rooms frozen in time. In the dining room, they found a table set for a meal, the plates covered in a thick layer of mold. In the nursery, a rocking chair swayed gently, as if someone had just stood up. Lisa tried to convince herself it was the wind, but the windows were sealed shut. That night, they set up camp in the living room, sleeping bags spread out on the floor. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the walls. Lisa lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. "Mark," she whispered, "do you hear that?" Mark was already asleep, his breathing slow and steady. Lisa listened intently. There it was again, a faint whisper, like someone murmuring just out of earshot. She sat up, her heart pounding. "Mark," she said louder, shaking him awake. "What is it?" he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. "I heard something, like a voices." Mark sighed, sitting up. "It's probably just the wind. This old house is full of noises." But Lisa wasn't convinced. She grabbed her flashlight and stood up. "I'm going to check it out." "Lisa, come on. It's the middle of the night. Let's just go back to sleep." She ignored him, stepping into the hallway. The whispers grew louder, leading her to the basement door. It was slightly ajar, a cold draft seeping through the crack. Lisa hesitated, her hand hovering over the doorknob. Something deep inside her screamed to turn back, but curiosity got the better of her. She pushed the door open and descended the stairs. The basement was a dark, damp cavern, the air thick with the smell of mildew. Her flashlight beam danced across the walls, revealing shelves lined with jars of unidentifiable substances and strange symbols carved into the stone. In the corner, she spotted an old wooden chest. Inside, she found a Ouija board and a leather-bound journal. The journal belonged to Eleanor Blackwood, the youngest daughter of the family. Its pages were filled with frantic scribbles, detailing rituals and summoning spells. The final entry sent a chill down Lisa's spine. "We thought we could control it, but we were wrong. It's here. It's inside the house. It's inside me. God help us all." Lisa's hands trembled as she closed the journal. She was about to leave when she heard it, a low, guttural growl coming from the shadows. Her flashlight flickered, and for a moment, she thought she saw a pair of glowing eyes staring back at her. She bolted up the stairs, slamming the basement door shut behind her. Mark was waiting for her in the hallway. "What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." Lisa handed him the journal. "We need to leave. Now." Mark flipped through the pages, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern. "This is intense. But come on, Lisa. It's just an old journal. It doesn't mean anything. Did you not hear what I just heard? Or see what I just saw? Something is down there, Mark." Something bad. Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. Okay, let's not jump to conclusions. We'll check it out in the morning. For now, let's just try to get some sleep. Reluctantly, Lisa agreed. But sleep didn't come easy. The whispers returned, louder this time, and the temperature in the room dropped so low she could see her breath. She clung to Mark, her heart racing. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. Mark didn't answer. He was staring at the ceiling, his eyes wide and unblinking. "Mark!" Lisa shook him, but he didn't respond. His body was rigid, his breathing shallow. And then, in a voice that wasn't his, he said, "You shouldn't have come here." Lisa screamed, scrambling away from him. Mark's head snapped toward her, his eyes pitch black. He grinned, his teeth gleaming in the dim light. "It's too late," he said, his voice deep and guttural. "I'm already inside him." Before we continue, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below with your thoughts. What would you do if you were in Lisa's shoes? Would you stay and fight, or would you run? Let us know in the comments. Lisa's mind raced as she backed away from Mark, or whatever was controlling him. She needed to get out of the house, but the front door was on the other side of the room, and Mark was blocking her path. His body moved unnaturally, his limbs jerking as if he were a puppet on strings. "You can't escape," he hissed, his voice echoing through the room. Lisa's eyes darted around, searching for something, anything, she could use to defend herself. She spotted the fireplace poker lying on the floor and lunged for it. Mark, or the thing inside him, let out a guttural laugh. "You think that will stop me?" She swung the poker at him, but he caught it mid-air, his grip impossibly strong. With a flick of his wrist, he sent it flying across the room. Lisa stumbled backward, her heart pounding. She needed a plan, and fast. Suddenly, she remembered the journal. Eleanor Blackwood had mentioned a ritual to banish the demon. If she could find the right page, maybe she could save Mark. But the journal was still in the basement, and there was no way she was going back down there alone. If reading her thoughts, Mark's grin widened. "You'll never make it," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "The basement is mine." Lisa's breath came in short, panicked gasps. She had to think of something. Then, an idea struck her. The journal had mentioned a protective symbol, a sigil that could ward off the demon. If she could draw it, maybe she could buy herself some time. She grabbed a piece of charcoal from the fireplace and began sketching the symbol on the floor, her hands shaking. Mark watched her, his head tilted to the side like a curious predator. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice tinged with amusement. Lisa didn't answer. She focused on the symbol, praying it would work. As soon as she finished, Mark let out a roar of anger. He lunged at her, but an invisible force seemed to hold him back. He snarled, his black eyes burning with rage. "You think this will save you?" he spat. "I'll find a way in." Lisa didn't wait to see how long the symbol would hold. She bolted for the basement, her flashlight in hand. The stairs creaked under her weight, and the air grew colder with each step. The whispers returned, louder and more insistent, but she forced herself to focus. She had to find the journal. The basement was even darker than before, the shadows seeming to close in around her. Her flashlight flickered, casting eerie shapes on the walls. She found the chest where she had left it and grabbed the journal. Flipping through the pages, she found the ritual Eleanor had described. It required salt, candles, and a specific incantation. Lisa rummaged through the shelves, finding what she needed as she set up the ritual. The whispers grew louder, more frantic. The temperature dropped even further, and she could see her breath in the air. She lit the candles and began the incantation, her voice trembling but determined. The words felt foreign on her tongue, but she pressed on. Suddenly, the candles flickered, and the room was plunged into darkness. Lisa froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel something moving in the shadows, something large and malevolent. The whispers turned into screams, and the air was filled with the sound of cracking bones. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the noise stopped. The candles flared back to life, and the room was silent. Lisa's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the journal. She looked around, half expecting the demon to reappear, but the basement was empty. She climbed the stairs, her legs feeling like jelly. Mark was lying on the floor, unconscious but breathing. The blackness in his eyes was gone, replaced by their usual warm brown. Lisa knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. "Mark?" she whispered, shaking him gently. He groaned, his eyes fluttering open.
Lisa.
What happened?" She hugged him tightly, relief flooding through her. "It's over," she said. "It's gone." But as they left the house, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She glanced back at Blackwood Manor, its windows dark and lifeless. For a moment, she thought she saw a shadow move behind the glass. But when she blinked, it was gone.